Hello and welcome to this episode of the College Baseball Advisors podcast. Proud to be part of the CoachCast network, where coaches talk and greatness listens. Again, I'm your host, Wayne Mazzoni. My background is 30 years as a college baseball coach, 1992 to 2022. For the past 3+ years, I am running College Baseball Advisors, where I help develop players and help evaluate and get them situated in the recruiting process. So if you're interested in learning more about what I do and potentially setting up a no obligation Zoom call to talk out your situation, please visit collegebaseballadvisor.com. On today's episode, we have Chuck Ristano, head baseball coach at the United States Naval Academy. Chuck has been a longtime friend, coaching colleague, awesome guy, a lot of personality. He's from Long Island, like myself. He went to Sacred Heart University, so we talk about his upbringing on Long Island, his time at Sacred Heart University as a 2-year captain and pitcher. He then stayed on to start his coaching career at Sacred Heart before moving on to coach at Monmouth and then Temple, and then a huge job coaching at Notre Dame, where he's working with Link Jarrett. He and Link then went on to Florida State, where he coached for a couple of seasons before, having a lot of opportunities to get a head coaching position. We would talk about his options, and obviously the Naval Academy was a great one he couldn't pass up. So he just completed his second year at the Naval Academy. So we talk about life at a service academy, the recruiting process there, and kind of the characteristics that make the players there succeed on the field, in their Navy service, and then beyond. So hope you enjoy this episode with Chuck Ristano, head baseball coach at Navy. All right. Excited. I always make sure the recording button's being hit. I've done, you're the 40th podcast I've had, and luckily I've never done one where I haven't hit record, because that would really be awful. But Chuck, very excited that you're here. I mean, I consider us friends and colleagues for a long time. You're an awesome guy. You're one of my favorites. You just kind of get it. So excited to spend this time with you. I guess something I don't know about you or any of these people that I bring on here is, like, what were you like as an athlete growing up on Long Island? Like, were you a baseball only guy, or did you grow up in the era of doing everything?
Yeah, that's the era of doing everything. And we're like, I don't know. I work at Navy, so I can't say the greatest generation. But yeah, I miss that about kids. I want that for my kids. Every sport, oddly enough, like the one sport I didn't touch growing up on Long Island was lacrosse. But hockey, football, soccer, basketball, of course, baseball. I just so enjoyed that. And, yeah, I mean, I probably love my New York Islanders as much as I love my New York Yankees. So, yeah, I thought that was a really big part of my youth. And I think that's an important piece for young guys growing up to know that's an important part of your athletic development.
Yeah, it's definitely going away for sure. But I think people like you, coaches that are in the know with their kids, they want them to play. First of all, you want your kids to enjoy it, number one, right? And then at some point they'll realize, and you'll all realize, if there's a passion and a talent, you'll specialize. But when was it that you either had the goal or realized you were good enough to play college baseball?
It was pretty late. I don't know that I was a late developing kid, because I would tell you I was not a supremely talented kid, but you start to accrue good performances and people start reaching out to you. And, I was certainly not somebody that was commanding attention from the ACC or the SEC, but probably the summer going into my senior year of of high school, people started to pay attention. And yeah, then it kind of picked up in the fall of my senior year. I mean, I'm kind of the generation where most of us, even the ones who went on to the biggest schools, were probably not committed until the fall or winter of their senior year. So I kind of fell into that timeline. And I went to Sacred Heart, and I loved my time there. And I know you've got plenty of time behind you at Sacred Heart as well. So yeah, that's kind of how that evolved for me. But I don't think there was ever a moment where I woke up and was like, oh man, I'm going to be lucky enough to be a Division I athlete. It kind of just happened over time.
When do you think, so you graduated high school what year?
Class of 2000, yeah.
Okay, so obviously right as the internet and cell phones, because now in this modern world, travel teams, camps, recruiting is insane. So did it get insane with the advent of like, was it easier to market camps and have travel teams? Like, it seems like the internet is what made the modern world of recruiting as crazy as it is, because it wasn't when you were in high school.
No, I think you just have access to information, and people are very competent at disseminating that information or putting it out there.
Right.
I think I probably going back, we had an email address. It was not like me sending videos to people. If there was a video of me, it was on a VHS.
Right. Right.
So I went to camp. I played it at the time, the highest summer baseball and fall baseball I could, which at that time was the Long Island Tigers.
Yeah.
And I went to, camps, and being a left-handed pitcher, I mean, you kind of stand out for the need for you.
Right.
And then, I got lucky enough to have some people target me, but yeah, it wasn't the immediacy of information that we see now.
And who else do you recall was in play? Like, if it wasn't Sacred Heart, were there 2 or 3 others that were, possibilities for you?
Yeah, I visited Manhattan College. Coach Trimper was there.
Right.
I really liked that. I think Coach Blankmeyer at St. John's, that was a little bit of a dream for me, where I grew up I'm on Long Island, but very much closer to Queens than the Hamptons.
Right.
So, and he kind of explained to me that he didn't know that I'd be a early contributor. And I, at the time, if I knew now, or if I knew then what I know now, I would have respected that a lot more than I did at the time. Right. I would love to have put that Red Storm jersey on, because that was a bit of a dream of mine. But St. John's lightly recruited me, Seton Hall the same, Stony Brook out on the island, and Hofstra. But I kind of, I don't want to say I settled on, but I chose to call Sacred Heart home, and it was a really good decision for me.
It's funny with Sacred Heart, because after this today, I'm going to Long Island, where I'm from, out in Northport. And as I'm on the ferry a lot, I see a lot of Sacred Heart stuff. And it seems like it's a great place for kids from the island, because it's away, but it's not that far away. Do you remember at that point thinking, like, man, I'm getting off the island and I'm going away to school, but I could get back home if I need it?
Yeah, it was. That's exactly right. My whole family is one of that lives in a geographic radius of about 10 miles.
Right.
And, my mom has 5 sisters, and my dad had a sister and 4 brothers, and they all have kids. So we're that like Irish, Italian family that the holidays are a big deal. So being able to get home for weddings and holidays, that was a really nice, a nice bonus. So it was, far enough away where I was living my college life without interruption, but close enough where if I needed to get home, I could. And that wasn't the driving factor, but it was one of them.
And, this many years later, what's your takeaway from your experience? I'm really talking more baseball at Sacred Heart, which, the place has come ridiculously a long way since you were there. But what's your takeaway this many years later from your time there?
I'm really happy that they're having the success that they're having. We played them this year. I competed against Pat Egan when he was at Quinnipiac, and I think what him and his staff are doing is unbelievable. I have not been on campus in a very long time. I would like to see it, because I followed on my social media feeds. I'm an alum, right? It's really cool to see what they're doing. But I think more than anything, really proud of the type of product they're churning out. I think when I was there, it was still the early stages of Division I.
Right.
And I think there's been this nice upward trajectory in the program that alumni who are my age, who are kind of like the first full generation of Division I Sacred Heart, I think we're really proud to see where it's gone. And you've got some of our alumni who are coaching now in college baseball, which makes me really proud. So it's something I'll always wear like a badge of honor, for sure.
And when you were there, obviously your first coaching job was there. Did you think at some point, did you always know you were going to get into coaching, or did you go, hey, I'll try it? Like, how did that first move into coaching come about?
I didn't really think about it until like the reality that, hey, you were going to stop playing at some point hit you. I don't know if this is that way for everybody, but I kind of probably always knew I wasn't going to be a pro, but I didn't really face that reality until it's like April of your senior year, and you're like, well, I haven't filled out a questionnaire yet. So I did I knew I just didn't want to get out of sports. So I did an internship at Octagon, the sports agency, and at the time it was in Stanford.
Yep.
And I finished that internship and realized I didn't know if the agency type of things was for me. Coach Giaquinto was nice enough to just let me come on staff and just use me for whatever. And I was working at offense, defense football camps to pay the rent. And that year we had a good year and I got to learn how to coach. And then I went on it, my first kind of full-time, oh, shoot, you're recruiting now, was at Monmouth. And Coach Ehalt took me on and really showed me how to be a coach. So I didn't always know I wanted to be a coach, but I absolutely always knew I wanted to be involved in baseball.
So, again, I had referenced before, I've done about 40 of these. Dean's name has come up 10 different times.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at his coaching tree of all the people that have been there with him and the place they are now, you being one of them, it's ridiculous. So is it something that he sees in coaches? Is it something that he develops in you? Is it something connections where help? What can you say about him that his track record for churning out coaches is ridiculous?
It's probably all of the above. He does, I think he's got a really good system of saying, I'm going to get maybe the up and comer and I'll get them early and they'll give us 3, 4, 5, 6 good years and maybe move on to a different opportunity. I think he, even when I was there, which now at this point is holy cow, 18, 19 years ago,
right.
He already had a demonstrated track record. And since that, you've got me, you've got McGahee at Florida State, you got Carl at Auburn, you got George Brown at St. John's, Bellinger's at Clemson, Brady's at Duke. That's absurd.
Great.
Yeah, I think he can identify maybe people he can help mold, but he's so steadfast in this is the right way to do things. And he teaches you and he's hard on you in a really good way. The discipline he creates, the attention to detail that he forces you to learn is what helps you move on to maybe the next opportunity. And I carry those lessons. I haven't been there since the season of 2009. And I still talk about Dean on a daily basis. I owe him almost everything I have, in this profession.
That's really awesome to hear. I'll make sure he hears that. I know then after there you went on to Temple. And then I had done a little research and I go, well, obviously Temple dropped baseball in 2014. Was that the logical step moving up? And then also, did you leave? Or I guess, how did the job come about? And then did you leave because of a new opportunity? Or was there any writing on the wall that baseball is not going to be long at Temple?
Well, winding it back, so 2009, we win the conference championship at Monmouth. And I was there for 4 years. We were in 2 regionals. We had a couple of top 10 draft picks on the mound. Really proud of that. The Temple opportunity came up to what I thought might be to take on a new challenge and different conference. I know it sounds silly, completely different way of life, North Philadelphia versus the Jersey Shore. But I wanted to take on a new challenge. I was young enough to be portable. I don't have a wife and kids. So it just felt like it was time. It felt like we'd closed the book at Monmouth. And right. I went and it was different. Again, this is not any way to denigrate Temple or the baseball program I was a part of, but it was different than what I thought I'd experience. Living in the city and a field that was not on campus. I can't tell you I knew that a few short years later they'd be dropping the program. But to be completely honest, my exit at Temple was exclusively because I got the chance to go to Notre Dame. And that fit what I wanted to be as a coach. I mean, again, an Irish, Italian Catholic from New York. I went in to be the volunteer there, but Mick said, look, you're going to kind of run the show on the pitching end. And that was all I needed to hear. I took the job without even seeing it. And the opportunity of a lifetime for me. And I moved out, in one day. Again, that wasn't me fleeing something at Temple that I didn't know at the time was going to be a dormant program. That was just purely because Notre Dame to me was an opportunity that I could not pass up. And I stayed there for 12 years. you know.
So this is really some interesting stuff in there. So obviously it makes sense that Mick and you you have a relationship, which is what leads to you. Obviously, he knows you're a quality person, quality coach, so it's a good connection. But interestingly enough, now we don't have to get into the weeds of it, but I would assume as the volunteer there was still some camp money or something. But I always makes me laugh is this great position you have now and how you've been elevated, but yet you went to Notre Dame 6 years into your coaching, maybe 7, as a volunteer. Like basketball and football dudes don't understand that, do they?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're odd in the sense, even at that time, before we had the third full-time assistant. There's 40 guys on a roster, and at that time there's 3 full-time coaches. It's a pretty disproportionate. I think
totally.
Mick, not hiring me, but the idea that if I can get a pitching guy who's not in a recruiting role, it guarantees that my pitching coach is always on campus. And so for 12 years at Notre Dame, I did every single tour. I was so proud of the place, and I was always at practice. The pitchers were never without their pitching coach. So on a personal level, I was single. I had a truck that I moved out all my stuff in one trip. The camp money, the lessons I did, you made ends meet, and the opportunity is what drove me to go there. And could I do it now with a wife and 2 kids? Well, that would be a challenge. But absolutely sight unseen, no brainer. I'll clean the toilets if I have to make it work. Just give me the opportunity and give me some real responsibility, and I'm there whenever you need me. That was my thought process.
So a couple of things at Notre Dame. I've been out a few times back. I used to work camps back when Paul Maneri was the head coach, and then I've road tripped to some football games. What an absolutely special, institution that it is. Was it just Mick and then Link as head coaches? Is that accurate?
Yes, that's right.
So pretty special that there's a head coaching change and you stay on board. That says a lot about what the players must have said about you to keep you around. I mean, and obviously, did you have a previous relationship with Link or no?
No, I didn't, oddly enough. But it's one of those things in this profession that it's big, but it's really small. I think when Link was a candidate for the job, a lot of people that were in his immediate circle I had interacted with through my time in the ACC, and unbeknownst to me, were good enough to say, hey, look, you're about to take on some really unique properties at this Notre Dame place. In not so many words, a lot of people vouched for me and said, hey, I think it's probably a good idea if you might want to keep Chuck. And that's, it's the Chris Hart at NC State. It's probably Brian O'Connor at Virginia, and it's Ty McGahee, who we worked together at Monmouth. And, Link was really thorough and very, very thankful that he gave me that opportunity. And I'm glad that we were collectively rewarded with the success that we were able to achieve there.
So that's really a testament to your character and coaching ability. So that's really neat. I do know this, curious to get your take. You've probably been asked before. I hope it's not boring to you, but is the weather a real big challenge at Notre Dame?
Yes and no. Yes, of course. Would you rather it be 72 and sunny every day? Yes. But I think their facilities can accommodate the best preparation you could possibly have if the weather's not good. You have an indoor facility that you can legitimately inter-squad in, which is, now that football had moved into their own facility, you basically share it with the 2 lacrosses and softball.
Right.
So for a couple hours a day, it's yours, and it's 120 feet of turf. It's a full infield. The outfield is a little compromised, but you can roll out the mound, and it's the batter-pitcher confrontation, and it's rundowns, and it's controlling the running game, and it's bunt defenses. So one of the biggest paradigm shifts, at least on a personal level, I made from struggle to success at Notre Dame was to just highlight the positive, distinctive things that it came with. Instead of saying, man, Miami's outside today, Florida State's outside today, why can't we? Such and such doesn't have the academic standard or the cost that we have. This makes it challenging. The admission standard is, once you started to highlight, man, we got some pretty special stuff going on here. that's when success followed. So is it a challenge when the weather goes bad? Yes. Do you have the necessary facilities and investment to have success in spite of the weather? Absolutely.
So I don't always get too much into personal things here when on this podcast. However, if I'm correct, you met your now wife at Notre Dame who was coaching. So is that accurate?
Yeah, softball coach. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, was that difficult to, navigate a relationship with two people coaching, and then you got married and then kids? Like, I'm curious, when I was coaching for all those years, my wife, like, I'd come home, I wouldn't even tell her if we won or lost. Like, we would just go walk the dog, and like, you now are married to someone who's living your same life. That, is pretty interesting.
I would say like twofold. We both have feel. So I think when you come home, each of us kind of knows what the other needs. So, I don't come home to a wife who baseball is not something she understands. And I do my best to understand softball. So when one of us had a particularly difficult day, leaving each other alone is a strength in our relationship. So it was easy in that regard. And then, like, we were blessed with a couple of children. When that variable enters play, then now it's like time, because it's not like one of us coaches in the fall and the other coaches in the spring.
Right.
So legitimately, like we did, like any good, again, this is the third time I've referenced, Irish-Italian family from New York does. Like, my mother moved in with us for our seasons, and she had to be a professional grandparent, and we were able to chase our athletic ambitions. So it was the single worst part of our marriage for the baseball softball dynamic was the 2021 season, the postseason after COVID, where we're testing every 3 days, where I tested positive, which contact traced my wife, which meant I was not going to be at our Wake Forest series. And my wife, who never tested positive, got contact traced. So she had to miss 10 days. And I don't know that she's forgiven me for that. That was the single biggest strain in our marriage. So I guess
I'll tell you, you are lucky, but I remember, and it's like I blocked it out until just now. I remember getting in like on a Sunday night from some, Mount St. Mary's series, get in at 12:30, drive home, get to bed at 2, and then have to be back at school at 7 for COVID testing.
Yeah.
And it was just awful,
One of the only, I guess, positives was if you tested positive, you didn't test again.
Right,
so
right.
I went that whole year. We'd get back from, UVA and come back and, get back late. And, hey, remember, 7:15 testing, and just wave us. I'll be sleeping. But yeah, that was wild times for all of us.
So then obviously Link gets the job at Florida State, and you move with him. I should know this, but were you there 1 or 2 seasons?
I was only there 1 year. Yeah.
You were there 1 year. So what was life like there and obviously, again, Notre Dame's big-time baseball, but going to Florida State, new environment, was it same old baseball for Chuck, or was it like, whoa, we got a different animal going on here?
I think you have a different animal, and I mean this complimentary. Florida State baseball is like a professional environment, and you're dealing with people who they want to be pros and first-rounders, and you've got a demonstrated performance history to live up to. That's a beast. And I mean that in a good way. The fans, the community. Notre Dame stretches such a broad spectrum. The local community loves you, but you're just as popular in New York or Southern California as you might be in South Bend, Indiana.
Right.
The whole world of Tallahassee, Florida, and most of the state, like when you're a Seminole, that's a big deal, and it's in your face every day. So that was and it's just a different speed. Growing up in New York and coming down to Tallahassee, the way you talk is a little different. People are wonderful and they love their Seminoles. And selfishly, I said to myself, man, like, you went to Sacred Heart, and I worked my butt off to be able to put that uniform on. Like the first time putting a Seminoles uniform on, knowing who's worn that uniform, and Coach Martin and the ghosts that live in that stadium. So proud to be a part of that, even for what was a season of immense struggle and only a finite period of time that we were there. So proud to have experienced that. The people, even during the struggle, were so good to us. But, you know, the Naval Academy kind of came calling, and it was just an opportunity that yes, I wanted to be a head coach like most coaches, but the chance to touch some of our nation's future leaders was, I think it just really aligned with what I'd hoped to be as a head coach. So, but I mean, I know I told you the early parts of my career, I owe so much to Dean. There's like, not that there's a beginning, middle, and end of my assistant coach story, but you have 4 years with Dean and he taught me everything. And the 9 years I spent with Mick, like the transition from the Big East to the ACC and navigating some success and some struggle, and the poise with which and professionalism with which he handled that taught me so much. And then working with Link was like getting a PhD in baseball. He's so intelligent and he's so thought out, and they're going to win a national championship there. And I'm just so happy to have all three of those guys in my circle, or that I'm in their circle. And then, yeah, you get the chance to kind of chart your own course as a head coach, and that's kind of where I am now.
So let's talk a little. You alluded to it about Navy, but you know, you won't say this, but I could brag for you. I would imagine with your track record, your great success, your personality, all this stuff, you probably had a pretty good pick of some opportunities. In fact, you and I would occasionally talk about a couple of them and give you my take, and then obviously, so Navy, you know, had to offer something that resonated with you. Is it just the institution? Is it the kids? Is it everything that makes you so proud to work there?
It's everything. The logo, like, okay, the last few spots, when you walked onto a grocery store or a plane with a Notre Dame logo, it meant something. The Florida State Seminole head, like, it means something. Well, the N-Star, it's so much broader than competitive college athletics. I think, first and foremost, like a chance to compete at a high level, you know, compete for, win championships, have the greatest rivalry in sports in Army and Navy, and be a part of that. And then the quality of the people. I talked about it with you a little off air here. I literally just got back from a change of commandant command, and the people in that room and the firepower that leads our future leaders, that I get to touch that just for a little bit, is so humbling. Yes, we're chasing excellence in every facet of our existence, and that was something at Notre Dame that stayed with me. Like, don't compartmentalize excellence, you know, academically, service, and then, of course, our baseball demand. Annapolis is a pretty cool place to live. That doesn't hurt. But, yeah, the people I work with every day, how many places can somebody with a straight face say, like, the level of admiration I have for the player I coach from the second you walk in the door? And then, like, those players throw their cap up in graduation, and they go from me being in front of them and attempting to lead them to they go right to the front of the line and they defend the safety of me and my family. That sounds dramatic, but it's real.
Yeah, no, it isn't. And here's a question. I have never worked at an academy. I've coached against them, and I've known a lot of the coaches. With the demands that these guys have outside of baseball, are you just coaching the way you always have, or are you ever taking it a little easy because this is their outlet after a crazy day, or are you tough on them because this is what they're used to and they like toughness, or is it a little bit of all that?
I think you have to learn to feel. Like, is there a bigger trait in any facet of life than just like feel? And I know that's a broad term, but
no, it's great. I like it.
Yeah. Have the foresight of, hey, they're getting their butts kicked this week. Like, maybe we need to throttle down. Hey, this is an opportunity for us to throttle up. So I don't think I intentionally change how we coach or the demand of this is the type of baseball I think will win. But I do think you have to exercise some discretion when there's days or weeks where you don't have all of them. The length of practice, the intensity of practice, the stuff you do at practice, quite honestly, the environment you create. Like, the staff members you have. We have to be, I don't say we have to be the best part of their day, like we're some sort of feel-good club sport.
Right,
They
right.
enjoy coming to the field and enjoy the experience and process of getting better. So they always want a challenge, but we have to have enough feel on when to throttle up and throttle back.
Is there any, from being there a couple of years now, is there any overriding commonality of the cadet, of the player? What's the proper term to call them? Midshipmen? Midshipmen.
Mid, yeah.
Yeah. Is there any overriding quality that you see that might separate them from a kid at Sacred Heart or Monmouth? Is it discipline? Is it integrity? Is it attention to detail? Is it love of the country? Like, is there anything you go, these kids have this quality more than other kids at other institutions?
The holistic chase for excellence. I think there's still some regular guys who have, sometimes they'll run into a confidence issue, an anxiety issue, things that come with being 19 years old. They're high achieving people who are signing up to do something extraordinary that's going to challenge them at an extraordinary level. This is designed not for you to fail, but for it to be hard. So right. I've coached, it's funny, the longer I stay here, the more I reflect on the kids at Notre Dame or Monmouth or Sacred Heart, where I'm like, oh, he'd have fit in great here. Right. And yeah, there's plenty of my old teammates that, including me, that probably would not have been able to do it. But I think the common theme is just they have this relentless pursuit of excellence in everything they do. At the academy, they are judged and graded in every facet of their existence. There's an academic order of merit. There's a military order of merit. There's a physical mission order of merit. So like a baseball player who is consumed with their numbers, their order of merit can sometimes consume them because it will generally dictate their options later.
That's good. I did not know that. Interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
High achieving people, and you've got to be comfortable in the, I took more away from this probably from my Notre Dame experience, just because most of the Sacred Heart, the Monmouth, and the Florida State kids were from a more finite geographic radius.
Right.
So Navy, you got to be able to communicate with the catcher from South Georgia or the pitcher from Southern California or the infielder from Long Island. They all kind of see the world through a different lens, but they come together for this immense challenge that brings out the very best in people.
So perfect kind of transition to talk about, recruiting. I guess I'll ask you a part A and B. First of all, part A is, how is recruiting different at the Naval Academy compared to other places? And, are there things that you look for in players? And it doesn't have to necessarily be Navy players, but, is there something you're looking for, pitchers, position players, that's just your style of what you want?
Sure. So the difference here, the process is a little more thorough. At Sacred Heart, you'd fill out an application and, you'd go through interviews and you write your personal statements, and we have all of that here. But it's a little more rigorous academic piece. You have to go through a medical review board. You have to get a congressional appointment. So there's, I think, 11 steps to this process. We're still looking for the same traits in a player.
Right.
You have to be really exhaustive because we have a broad geographic radius to pull from, but it filters very quickly and very narrowly from an academic standpoint, from a medical standpoint, from an interest level standpoint. So you're kind of threading this needle that slowly filters. But if we only recruited and probably the biggest misconception is, if we only recruited players who woke up when they were 5 years old and said, man, my dad's a pilot, I'm going to go to the Naval Academy. My uncle's an admiral. Most of our roster had not considered service or the Naval Academy until baseball got involved. And then you present to them exactly, hey, what this actually means. And the light bulb starts to go off with certain guys. As far as what we're looking for, player traits, I think for me and the way I think we need to play is just general athleticism, positional versatility. I don't like the concept of hiding bats places. Yes, we need to swing the bats at a higher clip, but I like guys who can play a complete offensive game. We can bunt, we can run, we can steal bases, we can dirt ball read. And yes, like I have to be able to check the box of where can he functionally defensively play. It probably wouldn't surprise you, like pitching and defense tends to be a really big sticking point for me. But when I say athleticism on the pitching end, not that you don't recruit POs, but I feel like that's like the most dangerous label you can get as a young player. I like guys like to evaluate them coming off the mound and seeing how they feel their position. Can they execute a 1-6-3? Are they controlling the running game? The reason being, I think that also tells when there's going to be another physical jump, when they get physically more mature. It also tells a guy who might have more capability for making the adjustments you want him to make. So most certainly athleticism in every facet of their existence. Being able to check here's where I can play defensively. And just kind of, again, I go back to feel, like, what do you look like on the field? You know, if I stick you in left field and you've been used to playing second base, like, can you not stand out for all the wrong reasons?
Right.
You know, are you capable of hitting at the top of the lineup and doing what that demands versus do you have to hit in the middle? Athleticism is a really important piece. And when we recruit, I just expect our staff to be really thorough. What do your eyes see? Is there projection? What are people saying about him? Not just his coaches, but the opposition. You know, I hate to say this, but like, I don't know if people admit this, but are we the only ones recruiting the kid?
Right.
Sometimes you feel like you found it and you're like, oh boy, are we seeing something nobody else is seeing? Sometimes you're right. Sometimes you're not. And I just think that we go through these check marks when we check and cross-check a kid. And that's part of the beauty of having 4 coaches who can now go out and recruit where it used to only be 3. So I expect us to be really thorough, and my staff does a really good job of that.
One thing you mentioned that struck with me was like, there probably are many kids that grow up, their dream is to play at Navy for whatever their reason. I'm going to guess many of them just don't have the baseball talent to do it. Like, it sounds good. They're the perfect kid. They're just not good enough. I would imagine that happens pretty darn often.
I think that's a really hard conversation with a coach or a parent who's recommending a young man because, and maybe I'm biased, but I shouldn't have this job if I don't feel this way. We have the most special young people in the world. When a coach calls me and says, I wish my daughter married this kid, he's the greatest young person in 30 years of coaching. You have to politely and tactfully say, that really matters. But it's also not a separating property here. Everybody in this institution is somebody's greatest kid of all time. Right. And that's great. And that matters. We have to be able to answer the question of, can he help a Division I baseball team win championships? And there's no argument about whether this young man is a great fit for the academy. Is he also a great fit for our baseball program that's aspiring to move this needle? That's where, okay, now we've got to have the baseball conversation because the demand of performance is real, and we came here to win championships. And that can be really sticky if you don't tactfully have that conversation, but it's probably the most frequent one we have.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny in what I do now, which is try to assess kids what the right level is for them, what's the right academic environment, social environment, and that, you know, the parents are always bragging, well, he volunteers for this and he's got honors and he does all this stuff, and I go, here's what a coach wants to know. Is he good at baseball and can he help him win? That's first. After that, all the other stuff matters like crazy. But if any coach was picking between the world's greatest kid who can't hit and the greatest hitter on the East Coast, and maybe he doesn't volunteer for anything, I think we'd take the hitter. You know, like, let's face it, it's first and foremost, and the other things matter, but after you can play.
Yeah, and I mean, I think your academic performance, your community service performance, your leadership, you demonstrated leadership skills in the clubs you're in or your student council, your class rank, all of these things. Those are to some degree objective measurements. And I'll be the first to tell you, like, we don't always get it right. Plenty of kids that we should have recruited that didn't. And maybe there are some that we did that shouldn't have. Anybody
everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Anybody that's been this long enough knows that you've gotten it wrong from time to time and you hate when you do. But there is the element where sometimes I think it's easier to reconcile shoot, I should have took that kid versus why did I take this kid, you know? And again, I don't want anybody who's listening to this out there to think we are ever having this conversation casually.
Right.
We take the future of the young people we coach very seriously. We take the future of our baseball program, which we're charged with moving forward, very seriously. There's nothing worse than getting it wrong in recruiting, whether it's the kid is not good enough or he was good enough and you missed on him, or the fit wasn't right. And this place, like, fit is critically important. If you don't get the right fit here, it will not generally end well.
Yeah, totally. All right. We have one topic left. It may take a little while to unpack. And I'm going to tackle it from two frames here. I have conversations with coaches all the time. Just got off the phone call earlier with a coach who is just really frustrated with the current landscape of college baseball and transferring and NIL and all this stuff. So I guess my first question before I get to the second part is, it really seems that a lot of the chaos going on in the baseball world is really not affecting a place like Navy. So NIL money, kids transferring all over the place. Is it fair to say that your institution isn't really dealing with the stuff that most other places are? Is that accurate or am I wrong?
Yeah, it is. It's accurate. We're not in the NIL world. Our kids are effectively like federal employees. We're not an opt-in. So now the transfer door, it can swing both ways. There's an opportunity here for us to do that, but that's threading a needle even smaller than the high school admissions process.
Right.
But yeah, we're very fortunate, I think, to not be really wading into those waters.
So then the second part of that is, from your spot, kind of insulated from that, are you, you're a really experienced guy with a head coaching position. Are you seeing what's going on? And I don't want to throw you under the bus here, like if you don't like something, but I'm getting a lot of complaints just with guys that feel like their 4-year school is now a 2-year school. And are you happy with the way it's going, or is that you looking on the outside frustrated with the way things are going?
I think we're in some, the understatement of the year, we're in some pretty uncharted territory. I think it's hard. I think it's accelerated at a rate that we can't properly manage it. I don't know if this is like where we should land, but we landed here so fast and loose that I think the people who are in that world, and I was in it.
Yes.
Sometimes you don't quite know what tomorrow's going to bring. I really enjoy the fact that, with the exception of probably some very unique cases, I will have player in freshman year at point A, and we'll have the chance to get him to point D, the 4 years.
Yeah.
Where I think justifiably so. A lot of programs are frustrated that they get a kid from point A to B and then they take B to C somewhere else. Right. And in some cases, C to D somewhere else. So I think it's good for the kids to get opportunities and get paid, and I think that's good for the kids. I think there needs to be a little more balance than what we've got. And, it's easy for me to point out the problem without a solution. I just know in my talks with a lot of friends who are going through it. And now those friends are capable of radically altering their roster for the better. It's not all bad.
Right.
They're able to build and plug holes bigger and faster than they ever have before.
Right.
But I don't know that anybody that's in it right now would tell you, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when they got into this profession, this is what they envisioned themselves doing in terms of impacting young lives. We are here to win, like for our programs, like whether you're at Navy or Sacred Heart or Florida State or the national champs at LSU, we're here to win. But I think we get into coaching to impact lives. And sometimes that impact is give him the chance to be here for 1 year and make a lot of money and improve your draft stock. Like, that's impacting lives too. Fair. But I think for all of us, we like to be a part of the longer timeline.
So you said Yeah, I totally agree. And my last one was Donato from BC, and he said basically COVID, NIL, and not having the city year and the transfer all coming so quickly together has just made things spin out of control. But I think I know this, but you're in this and living it every day. You mentioned the opt-in and opt-out. Is that something that going forward that is going to be terminology every school? There'll be an opt-in or an opt-out, or is it not that clear-cut yet?
I think that clears it up, the opt-in and opt-out. But I think, like, what does it actually mean for everybody? I think they thought they got a little bit of clarity like a week ago. We thought we got a little bit of clarity like a month ago.
Right.
So I think that it's starting to crystallize. I think the opt-in and opt-outs are reasonably clear. And we're, us at Navy as an opt-out is not a demonstration of lack of seriousness of competitive athletics. We are, us, Army and Air Force, are just in such a unique space that had we not been in that space, of course, the scope of our athletic department would say, well, we're going to be with the Joneses. But because we operate in this unique space, we find ourselves as opt-outs. It's not quite as clear at some of the smaller schools who are attempting to achieve athletic success. I think there's more gray area for the opt-ins than there probably is for us as opt-outs. I think myself, Coach Kaz, and Coach Traz, we're not all sitting back drinking bourbon watching the Flames, but it is nice to kind of be on the sidelines on that one a little bit.
Yeah, totally. All right. Finally, kind of putting you on the spot. Is there any, advice that you would want to give back to like your high school junior self, or if there's a kid out there that, has a dream of playing college baseball or professional baseball? Is there anything over your time that you'd say, hey, here's one or two things to keep in mind, or a characteristic or a quality that, might impact a young kid?
Take the weight room and nutrition serious as early as you can. That will be the first thing that hits you in the face when you go to college or professional baseball, the seriousness with which you attack building and fueling your body. Because at 16 or 17 years old, when you're getting recruited, you're kind of invincible. And to some degree, your talent has gotten you where you want. And in order to take the next step, how you view fueling, strength and conditioning, and even athletic training will be the next step in your development. The earlier you can create that level of discipline, the better. Surround yourself with the best possible players. Play on the best teams you can play. And that doesn't mean like just chase every tournament and moonlight at 10 different teams, but play on the best team you can, get out there as often as you can. And you should have joy in this. When you play baseball and you're doing it in front of eyes who are determining opportunities or scholarships, just play with the freedom of somebody who loves the game. We can tell that. Like, you can tell when a kid loves it or doesn't love it. And I think that's just a really important piece that you'll get challenged by when you get to the next level. Your love will fuel you through the slumps. It will fuel you through the challenges that maybe you're not ready to meet at 18 years old. We can, like, does he love to play and compete? Is that a question we can answer? We have to in the recruiting process. Again, I'm not saying we always get it right, but don't play different when eyes are on you versus when they're not. Just be the same guy. We can tell when you care.
Yeah, I always tell the kids, like, you just got to play for the love of competition and beating the dude across from you. And if coaches are there and see it and like it, great. But too many kids are stressed out and care more about the exposure. And I get it, because if you and I grow up in this generation, we might get sidetracked of thinking the same.
Yeah,
you're right. So you got to love it. Yeah. And then, and the other piece is funny. Yes, as a you're a Yankee fan, I'm a Met fan, but I'm watching Lindor. They're showing him just taking ground balls with a T-shirt on before the game in Philly last night. And again, most people, if you said, hey, what's Francisco Lindor's body type, they would say kind of skinny, whippy. That dude is jacked. Yeah. So to your point, this has become a physical game. The Super Regionals, the College World Series, there's a lot of adult males in there, and you're right. So that's great advice. Get the body right, because this is a power sport. But
well, you stand next to them. I mean, the SEC and the ACC, again, my humble opinion, like that's like watching AA baseball now.
Totally.
Like you've watched with the need to win. And again, all respect to my friends in professional baseball. I don't know how many people care whether the Yankees AA affiliate is winning or not.
Right.
A lot of people care whether LSU won yesterday. And they're rolling a dude out there in the ninth inning who's throwing 100 miles an hour. You know, Mississippi State and Florida State, like it's alien what these guys are rolling out there that 15 years ago should have been prospects in professional baseball. They're now wearing college uniforms. When you stand next to a big leaguer or you stand next to those successful college players, they like swallow you.
Right.
And again, there's only so much you could do at 16 years old to affect what the natural growth patterns will be.
Of course.
The discipline that you create serves you better when your body is ready to make that jump. And, you know, talk a guy who's 5'10", like I would have killed to be 6'3", but if God let you be 6'3", like make the most out of that.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, Chuck, you're the man. Thank you so much. I know you had a busy day and it's a busy time of year, but I love hanging out with you. And you know, I like the Irish Italian. My wife is Irish. My mother-in-law is from Ireland. My dad was born in Italy. I love the Irish Italian. Something cool about them. They got personality. You know.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a lot for people. You know, I've got to choose when to like tone it down and dial it up. You know.
Right. Exactly.
But I've never lost it. You know?
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it, buddy.
All right. You're the best. Thanks, man.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the College Baseball Advisors podcast. Hope you enjoyed today's episode with Chuck Ristano, the head baseball coach at the United States Naval Academy. Really a fun, vibrant talk. He's an awesome guy. Again, my name is Wayne Mazzoni, the host of the podcast, 30-year college coach that now owns College Baseball Advisors. For more information on that, visit the website collegebaseballadvisor.com. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to seeing you on future episodes. Thank you so much.